How's it going, guys? Today I figured I'd do something a little bit different and just see kind of how my forms progressed over the years. So what I did was I went ahead and just grabbed some somewhat random clips from my videos throughout the last about 3.5 years, and just kind of figured I'd look at how my form started, different levels of my form and stuff that I remember focusing on at that point. So to start out with, this I had already been playing for probably a couple years, and this was actually one of my first ever times just recording myself trying to see what I'm doing in my form and try to analyze some of that stuff. So one thing I've already looked at these clips, so I have some thoughts already. First off, you can see me kind of bounce off of my feet. So that's something you'll see in a lot of what I'm doing even after this point. For the first couple years, I'm kind of bouncing around. You can see when I transfer my weight onto this foot here. You can even see my shoulder kind of going up and down. So if you keep an eye on that, let's go back a little bit. So as I'm turning here, you can see my shoulder just moving up and down there. Another thing that I notice about my form here is my reach back was super early. That's something that helped me figure out how to keep this in line with my target as much as possible. So that's why I chose this throw in particular, is because I actually had a decent line, but you'll notice even still as I pull through, it doesn't necessarily stay on that line. So you can see reaching back. I should be going towards, this is a bathroom right here. I should be going towards there, but you can see I kind of bring it around my body and release a little bit early. So actually my release point was good on this because, yeah, you can see it's still on this line, though my arm started kind of a little bit more this way. So maybe the difference between those being, 5 or 10 degrees, whatever the room for error is there. So you can see here, and then it's all the way out here going kind of that way, but I throw the disc with hyzer. Another huge thing that I'll focus on even in videos, these clips from later on, is how exactly my shoulder right here, how far my arm will actually go back, and overall flexibility of this area right here. Also getting my hips turned. You can tell my hips aren't necessarily turned all the way around. Ideally, after I release, I'll have my hips somewhere around here, a little bit earlier on, and still have my arm, following through at that point. So my follow through is really short. Now let me just clear all these marks here. So again, just some basic things that I can tell right off the bat. Some footwork, some of the release angle issues surrounding, and just following through on my shots. So, and then this is from the same day, just seeing it from the side. So again, this taught me a lot, trying to reach wide rather than back. Trying to create a line between my disc and the target was something I focused on a lot. And then just didn't really have any follow through. And you can see me basically falling over myself at this point. So you can tell my run-up's too quick, a little bit too much footwork. I'm not really transferring the forward momentum that I'm gaining here down to the ground. So my hips are kind of high. Knees aren't super bent. I mean, they're okay, but I'm not really... You can kind of tell all my weight's up top. So as I'm going forward, you can even tell here I'm kind of leaned this way. My foot's this way. And if you look at the plant, it actually doesn't look terrible. So I got, that position isn't too bad, I think. But overall, because I was already running up too fast, I haven't really transferred any of that power from the ground through my leg here. So that's an issue for sure. And then you can see me just kind of spin out. Let's see if I can get back to that real quick. And fall off the front of the T-pad. You can see I'm basically running off the T-pad. Just falling forward. It doesn't look like I have that much, speed or momentum left. But yeah, you can tell all my center of gravity is way too high. It should be down, closer to my hips, transferring power into the disc. I know I'm just making a bunch of John Madden lines now, but so yeah, that's I had a couple other shots that a little bit of dipping here. That's when I was at this point, when I recorded myself, that's something that I noticed. That's actually one of the only problems I thought I had, but little did I know there's a lot more. So yeah, just bringing the disc from basically right here, just under my chest, and bringing it down kind of below my chest and then back up again. Probably just a symptom of this short follow through. You can see how my shoulder just basically goes nowhere. So that's something I actually didn't start focusing on until a lot later than I should have probably. But so here, I believe this was about maybe a year or year and a half ago. I'll have to look that up again, but getting a little bit better here. I'm starting a ridiculous run up. So at this point, I started getting my body a little bit closer to the ground, but you can tell when I'm walking up here or running up how much I'm just bouncing off my feet. I'm just bouncing around. I'm not really keeping. If you look at my knees, you can tell, and here you can tell I'm not even touching the ground at this point. And I've got some decent speed going forward. My shoulders are kind of tilted forward. All my weight is forward basically, because I'm just running without really. There I did an okay job. I almost started transferring my weight there. Let's go back. So here, again, if I just paused it here and showed you this, that doesn't look too bad actually. But you can't ignore the fact that all of this run-up has already happened, and my body is going so much faster than my hips are, and my lower body really is going to catch up to. So you can see right here, it's not bad, again, trying to stay on the ground, but I just basically bounce my weight off of this foot, and then you can even see my hips going upwards. My whole upper body just is bouncing upwards and off of my toe. I even lose traction here. I'm basically, the only reason you're seeing this touch is because the soles of my shoes are just barely scraping the T-pad. I'm basically in the air right now. So that's something that I kind of developed trying to throw far, because I thought if I could run fast and just rip it, that, things would happen. But that turns out not to be the case. Yeah, you can just see my hips don't go anywhere. My shoulder, again, you can see that follow through isn't really there. It's a little bit better, but that's pretty much only because I'm spinning off of my foot there. And that's the only reason that I'm really getting any more extension here, or any, getting this arm turned all the way around, is because I'm just in the air spinning. That's the only reason. It's not because necessarily I'm any more flexible in my shoulder there, or any more loose or relaxed or smooth. It's just because I'm literally spinning. So that was a huge thing. Let's see what else. Yeah, mostly just run up. I'm getting my hips together a little bit. Yeah, Yeah, not too bad. I'm starting to. One thing I definitely was trying to focus on was keeping my head down, keeping my focus kind of on my hit point, like around here, kind of right in front of my. So really, my vision right now is more looking almost towards this trash can over here, rather than necessarily out there when I'm releasing the disc. I can still see things, obviously, in my peripheral vision. So I can see my view angle is probably about here to over here somewhere. So I can still look at my target and see the disc release, but I'm really trying to, before that, at about this point here, just keep my vision. I'm even pulling my head a little bit more than I would like to, because at this point I'm looking pretty much almost straight sideways. In my peripheral, I could probably see that trash can. But also I'm trying to peek right into this area over here. That's kind of my target area. So it's a little bit of a bad or a tough habit to break for me. You can see there, not too bad, but yeah, definitely something I wanted to work on. So the next one, same day. Again, just running up way too fast. You can see how spread my legs are as I'm running up. Like I'm literally bouncing across the tee pad off the ground at this point. I probably go off the ground again. Yeah, I go off the ground again here. And then follow through. You can see my foot even slides backwards in that area right there, because I'm just so top heavy, because I'm just running and bouncing around. So that caused me to throw into the ground a lot too, because when all my weight's forward, my shoulders are pointed down. The release angle, the angle of my arm is harder to control. I do a decent job on this one, keeping the disc steady somehow. I have no idea how I ever kept the disc steady, but you can tell even in those first couple steps. My disc starts out down here, and then going forward, it goes up with my feet. So feet are starting to come up off the ground. They're probably about 3 or 4 inches of height there up. So I just kind of kept my disc up there rather than kind of being down where I would think you'd want the disc, which is probably more down here. So just controlling where I'm pulling back, the consistency is really hard doing that. So let's go and remove these. Another one from there. I don't think there's a lot more to say. I'd say probably the biggest thing here too, you can see my arm back here is a big drag. So you can see, well, actually it's not too bad. I actually bring my shoulder down, but it's kind of hard when I'm putting my arm and shoulder way back here to kind of get it. If you look at a lot of pros, their hands tend to stay more down in this area when they're throwing, or by the time they release the disc. So with my arm way up high like that, it's kind of hard to get it back down into that nice area where it's not going to slow down anything. So really trying to get my shoulders rotated around, because eventually we want my shoulders basically to be pointing backwards, or sideways, at least the other way. And not having a hitch there is tough. Bringing that arm back down into this nice area where I can be free to move my front shoulder, because shoulders are attached. And again, it just creates an inconsistency. It's hard to do that movement with my left arm every single time if my arm's way back there. So it's kind of a balance between finding what generates power and what creates consistency. I'm sure that in some people's form is good and they can do it every time, but I couldn't. So here's a much more recent video. This is actually one of the more recent videos on my channel. I think this was from about 8 months ago. And so first thing, this one doesn't really show the run up, but my run up is still a bit fast and continues to be. But you can notice I'm actually a lot more grounded. You can see pretty good posture here. I'm actually kind of centered. My weight seems to be down low. You can see my hips are kind of jutted back. So you can tell that I actually transferred my weight down to the ground so that I can start spinning and kind of use that downward and outward push with my hips to try to actually generate power that way, rather than necessarily relying on me just running really fast to make the disc go faster. So that was something that took me a really long time to kind of, get my weight down towards the ground, but it feels a lot better. So you can tell that there's a big difference on my follow through, which that's actually something that someone else told me about around this time. They said, hey, why don't you keep your arm moving after you throw? You can tell it's still kind of down. If you watch, again, a lot of the top pros, their arm is nowhere near this low at this point. It's still probably up higher, even with their shoulders, probably. It's just a general flexibility thing and kind of a habit thing. So still some issues there, but overall, I'm not falling off the tee pad. You can see I'm actually rotating off the ground. And by that, I mean, you can see I'm actually pushing off my heel here. Down here, you can see I'm actually turning on my heel rather than my toe, because I'm actually transferring weight into the ground and trying to draw power from the ground up, and actually spinning and having some more of a release. This leg is actually having to, getting to slow me down. So those are some good things. I would say, so you can see this arm tucked in here more. That's a habit that I started to build, and then I actually recently stopped working on it in field work, and you'll see I've actually come back a little bit. Let's see if I've got one. So yeah, I still kind of flail my arm backwards like this rather than keeping it tucked, but sometimes it's about feel on the course, but I think that's something I could still correct. So going back to the other throw, again, so this actually shows a little bit more of the run up, which is good. So you can tell overall I'm not necessarily bouncing as much. A bad habit that I started doing, which I didn't do before, was because I was trying to keep this arm tucked. When I had my X step here, so as this back leg moved forward, since I think I was used to being in the air when I was X stepping before, trying to stay lower, I started pushing my arm that way to try to generate more forward momentum for some reason. Again, it's just kind of one of those things where I just picked up a habit. Probably during field work. So keeping the arm more to the side there was pretty good. Better follow back, but could definitely use, or follow through, but could definitely use some work. You can tell I reached my max flexibility about right there, and then my arm just kind of falls down after that point. Yeah, so some stuff to work on. Something that I think over this period I started to work on after looking at my form was just trying to get more of my back involved. So my shoulder blades are about probably here. But they can actually be a lot closer. This gap right here can be narrowed down a lot more. So just opening up my chest, using my back muscles, and combining that with my hips, and just trying to really make sure I'm using all those muscles to try to generate power to the disc or speed. So you can tell here you can tell even my shoulders, by my posture, you can see my back's almost like this. Whereas I'd like to see myself come up more even with my chest, maybe. Stick my chest out a little bit more, open up my shoulders, and really kind of bring those shoulder blades in together. And that in turn will help me open up this shoulder and just generate a smoother follow through, a smoother form. So those are my thoughts at this point. Here's another one from directly behind. One thing that I definitely see here too is still, you can see this line generated should put me over here by this tree. And that's definitely not where I want to throw. I'm trying to throw more on probably this line. So my reach back should be a lot wider so that I can just keep it on that plane, on that direction. Keep this there, but you can see the disc just wraps around me because I'm pulling in a little close to myself. So it's steady, on line, and then the disc has to get out of the way of my body in order to actually throw over here rather than towards the tree. So if at this point I just kept my head down and just kept turning and, release, I'll go that way. I'll go towards that tree. But because I'm trying to go towards the basket, I have to pull my head. I kind of, make sure to grip it. And then I threw it way over here. So that was a shank. It actually, funny enough, worked out in my video. But that's a problem that I continue to have, is trying to have a wider reach back. Try to see here, it feels super wide, but it's probably more just because I'm tilting myself down, which I'll talk about in the next clip. But it feels like I'm reaching super wide, but actually probably if I would just bring this shoulder here down and level up my shoulders a little bit, so that instead of when I reach back being down here to be, probably still down, because I think that's good, but maybe be more along this area right here so that I don't have inconsistency issues, and I think that'll help my reach back. So, and actually I was talking to a friend about that as well very recently. But yeah, overall better on the follow through for sure. That looks a lot better. In my other videos, my arm would have already been down next to my side. So improvement, you can see my hips are starting to open up more, which is good. That's something I was really focusing on the time. When I'm throwing, basically at this point, I am thinking to myself, reach wide and pull with your hips. That's what I was basically telling myself for a few months. So trying to reach wide and failing a little bit, but really loading my hips. And you can see right here just how much my hips are generating. So my hips actually get about 90 degrees, almost, maybe 70 degrees or so before I actually release the disc, which is good. I think I just need to fix my reach back a little bit so that the disc can stay on one line rather than rounding my body. So, all right, cool. So moving on. This is a couple months later. Let's see. Yeah, this one's good. Doing a better job of keeping my arm, tucked, but again, still tilting down and a little bit tight on my reach back. The follow through is a lot better. So this is after At this point, so you can see my follow through has had issues for over 4 years now, basically, because this clip is from 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, that I had this follow through problem. And through just playing disc golf and working on other things, eventually I got myself to here. Actually, well, really to here without really, focusing on it. At this point, someone told me, hey, your follow through is really short. And so now, by this point, I've worked on it for probably a few months. So basically over winter, still working on getting my hips open and still trying to work on my follow through. And I think I've been doing pretty well. So yeah, big difference though from when I first started to now. You can see I'm still running up a little bit fast. I'm bouncing a little bit still as I run up. But I'm actually getting my weight transferred and using that momentum here off of, you can see this knee kind of come around like that. Yeah, and you can see my hips open up a lot. And then just focusing on this point, continuing to generate powder and let that arm just come around for me. And just trying to stay relaxed. And you can tell no more falling off the front of the tee pad. I actually seem to transfer the energy from down here with, my legs and, my quads to my hips and then to my back especially. You can tell a big difference. Again, when I was looking at my shoulder blades before, they were pretty separated. It's kind of hard to tell with this jacket on, but my shoulder blades are probably right about here somewhere. So a lot better on using kind of my shoulders and my upper back to generate some power. Here's another one from directly behind. I am trying to throw a higher Anheuser shot. So when I throw Anheisers, I actually I try to finish low, but still, actually open up. So you can see here a lot better again with the shoulder blades being, closer to one another and my arm moving through, falling through. Again, the weight transfer is good. I'm not, flying off of my feet anymore. My head stays pretty level most of the time. That's something you can tell if you're bouncing around a lot. So my head kind of stays at roughly the same level. And because I was throwing Anheuser, I kind of pull my head here. But that's something I also need to keep working on, is keeping my head down so that I don't just kind of grip lock. And there's another throw. So this one you can see a little bit better, that shoulder release. A lot better follow through on this one. Much better follow through. Can tell how, the difference between that and before is just crazy. Hips are fully all the way opened. Shoulder blades together after the end of the swing there. And not a whole lot of extra gas coming off the end of the tee pad, which I think is a good thing. If you can transfer all of the momentum into your, in your hips, your body, your arm, and eventually the disc, then all that should be left is just your rotation going this way. All right. And our last set of clips is my most recent review video. Still plenty to work on. So you can see I still do that little arm pump on my X step, which I could probably get rid of. So arm down, and then it swings forward to try to bring my back leg around with more power, more speed. I don't know. That's just something that I do subconsciously that I'll have to eventually address pretty soon, probably. And my arm being back there, I don't really like. And my shoulders really dip down. I'd rather them be higher up. Because eventually in my swing, I do pull my shoulder up and the other one, or my right shoulder up and my left shoulder down. So eventually they even out. If I'm throwing a hyzer, that's not the worst thing. And I do tend to gravitate towards more of a hyzer flip shot. So this is probably just that it's in my comfort zone to be down here, reaching way back down. My reach back is a little bit better here. As far as how wide I'm bringing it, I could probably still, I think once I fix this whole shoulder mess here, it'll help a lot with my reach back staying in line. So yeah, you can tell again, reach back is here. So you'd expect me to be aiming maybe somewhere around this tree or over here even. So kind of this gap right here. But when I actually finish, the disc flies more over here. So that's again just rounding, and probably fix it with some shoulder balance and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I'm working on at this point. There's another Anheuser. Let's check out this one. Yeah, again, bouncing my left arm, kind of going up and down. You'll notice how much I go up here to down here. So that's something I got to work on still, is just keeping my body on a nice level plane for consistency's sake. And the big old dip. And my shoulders are actually at a good, I feel my shoulders are at a good angle when I'm actually pulling through, but it's just less consistent to try to get my shoulders to this spot from here rather than just starting on that plane and finishing here. So, again, sometimes I get lazy and I don't, bring my shoulders together. You can tell in this one, the gap is about here to here. So, yeah, overall, though, a lot of progress. So we'll just take one look at where I started 3 years ago. To now. So that's what 3 years of disc golf will do for you. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. I know this was kind of just thrown together and probably way too long, but if anybody wants to give me any pointers or, even send me videos to look at, I think that'd be cool. I've got some different ideas of what I could do in this kind of a series, but yeah, overall, just leave a comment, make sure you're subscribed, and thanks for watching, guys.